A sunny afternoon. On a radiant Saturday afternoon, when the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and the air buzzed with the sounds of chirping birds, 8-year-old Emily Johnson embraced the carefree spirit of childhood. She was the epitome of joy, with her wild curls dancing in the light breeze and a smile that could brighten even the gloomiest of days. That day, she and her 5-year-old brother Tommy were fully immersed in their favorite outdoor games, the kind that made the world fade away and time stand still. The backyard was their kingdom, a vast expanse of green grass dotted with colorful flowers and surrounded by towering trees that provided a sense of shelter and adventure. Emily and Tommy's laughter echoed through the neighborhood as they played tag, weaving in and out of the flower beds, their imaginations transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. To them, the mundane fence surrounding their yard became the walls of a grand castle, and the trees were enchanted towers. "Catch me if you can," Tommy squealed, his little legs moving with an energy that seemed boundless. Emily, always the attentive big sister, chased after him, her heart swelling with pride and love. She was determined to protect her little brother at all costs, a promise their parents had entrusted her with since Tommy was born. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm rays across their little kingdom, Emily took a moment to catch her breath, leaning against the trunk of a large oak tree. "Let's play hide and seek," she proposed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Tommy's face lit up at the suggestion, his imagination ignited at the thought of sneaking away and finding the perfect hiding spot. "Okay, I'll count," Emily said, closing her eyes and counting to 20. With each number, her excitement built, but so did her responsibility. "You better hide good," she warned, even as she heard Tommy's giggles fade into the distance. When Emily reached 20, she opened her eyes and called out, "Ready or not, here I come." She began her search, giggling as she peeked behind bushes and around trees. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and everything felt perfect, until the playful atmosphere turned ominous. As she searched, her playful demeanor shifted when she noticed something out of place. The family car, parked under the shade of the tall maple tree, looked strangely still. The doors were locked, and as she got closer, a sinking feeling formed in her stomach. "Tommy," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. There was no response, only the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. Rushing to the car, her heart raced as she peered through the window. There he was, Tommy, sitting in the back seat, his little face pressed against the glass, eyes wide with fear. The realization hit her like a cold wave. The windows were rolled up, and the heat inside the car was rising dangerously fast. Panic surged through her as she saw the sweat glistening on his forehead and the way he panted, struggling against the oppressive heat. "Hold on, Tommy," she yelled, her voice filled with both fear and determination. She grabbed the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked tight. The gravity of the situation settled heavily on her small shoulders. How had this happened? How had their innocent playtime turned into a life-or-death situation? Emily's mind raced as memories of her parents flooded back. "You're the big sister now, Emily," they had said. "You need to look out for Tommy." Their words echoed in her mind, reminding her of the responsibility she had to protect him. This was her moment to prove herself, to be the brave sister she knew she could be. She quickly scanned the area for help, but their neighborhood was quiet, the sounds of laughter and life fading away as her focus narrowed to Tommy's fearful eyes. Desperation clawed at her, but she took a deep breath, reminding herself that panicking wouldn't help. She had to think clearly. Gripping a small rock that she had picked up earlier during their play, Emily contemplated her options. The weight of her decision pressed down on her. Should she break the window? It felt drastic, but time was not on their side. The sun blazed relentlessly, and she could see the heat waves shimmering off the car's surface. She had to act quickly, and her heart raced as she weighed the risks. "Tommy, I'm going to get you out," she shouted, hoping her voice would comfort him. Even as she felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever, she moved closer to the car, her small hands trembling slightly around the rock. As she prepared to strike the window, a new thought crossed her mind. What if I hurt him? She whispered to herself, her heart aching at the possibility. She took a moment to gather her thoughts and reevaluate her plan. Okay, Emily, you can do this, she whispered under her breath, summoning every ounce of courage she possessed. Just then, she noticed a flicker of hope in Tommy's eyes as he started to calm down, seemingly sensing her determination. The warmth of their sibling bond infused her with strength. Emily took a deep breath, raising the rock high above her head. With a steady hand, she aimed for the corner of the window, where the glass was the thinnest. She couldn't hesitate. This was it. She had to be brave. In one swift motion, she brought the rock crashing down, and the sound echoed through the air like a thunderclap. The glass shattered, sending tiny shards flying in every direction. Emily felt a rush of adrenaline as she quickly cleared away the remaining fragments, her heart racing with both fear and excitement. "Hang on, Tommy. I'm coming," she shouted as she reached for her brother. With the window broken, she carefully leaned inside, her tiny body stretching as she reached for Tommy. "Grab my hand," she urged him, her voice filled with urgency and love. Tommy's small hand reached out, trembling but trusting. "Emily," he cried, his voice a mix of fear and relief. As their hands met, a surge of warmth flowed through Emily. She pulled with all her might, her heart swelling with the hope that she could save her little brother. The situation was dire, but their bond was stronger than any fear. "You're safe, Tommy. I've got you," she said, her voice steady as she tugged him towards her. With one final heave, Emily managed to pull Tommy through the shattered window, his small body tumbling into her arms. Relief washed over her like a cool breeze, and she held him tightly, feeling his heartbeat against hers. "You're okay. You're okay," she whispered, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. But as she held him, the reality of the situation set in. They had been so close to losing everything in a single moment. Emily's heart raced as she looked around, ensuring they were both safe. "What do we do now?" she asked, her mind racing as she tried to grasp the gravity of their near tragedy. "Let's get away from the car," Tommy suggested, his small voice shaky but filled with a newfound strength. Emily nodded, still holding his hand tightly as they moved away from the vehicle, the sun glaring down as if it were a witness to their ordeal. They sat down on the cool grass, the air still heavy with tension. As they caught their breath, Emily realized the importance of their bond as siblings, the way they had worked together, even in a moment of fear. It was a lesson that would stay with them for years to come. "Amy, you saved me," Tommy said, his wide eyes filled with admiration. Emily smiled through her tears, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. "We saved each other, Tommy. We always will," she promised, her heart swelling with love for her little brother. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the backyard, Emily held Tommy close, knowing that they had not only survived a terrifying ordeal, but had also grown stronger together. The day had started with laughter and play, but it had transformed into a testament to the power of family, love, and bravery. The aftermath of courage. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the backyard, Emily and Tommy sat side by side on the cool grass, hearts still racing from their harrowing experience. The gentle breeze that rustled through the trees felt like a whisper of reassurance, but the reality of what had just transpired loomed large in Emily's mind. "Amy, are you okay?" Tommy asked, his voice small and filled with concern. His eyes were still wide, reflecting the fear that had gripped him only moments earlier. Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. "I'm okay, Tommy. I'm just glad you're safe," she replied, forcing a smile despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. But deep inside, she felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. They sat in silence for a moment, the chirping of crickets slowly filling the evening air. Emily felt a surge of protective instinct wash over her as she glanced at her little brother. His cheeks were still flushed from the heat of the car, and he looked so small and vulnerable. In that moment, the reality of being a big sister took on a whole new meaning. It was a role filled with responsibility she hadn't fully understood until now. "Do you want to go inside?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. The thought of the warm, inviting home felt like a refuge after the chaos of the afternoon. "Yeah, I think I need some water," Tommy replied, his voice still shaky. Emily nodded, wrapping her arm around him as they made their way toward the back door, both feeling the weight of their recent ordeal. Once inside, the comforting aroma of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air, instantly lifting Emily's spirits. Their mother often baked on weekends, filling their home with warmth and sweetness. But today, even the smell of cookies couldn't completely erase the memory of the panic they had just faced. "Hey, you two," their mother called out from the kitchen, her cheerful voice breaking through the haze of fear. "How was your day outside?" She emerged, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face lighting up at the sight of her children. But as she took in their expressions, the joy faded, replaced by concern. "What happened?" she asked, kneeling down to meet them at eye level. Emily hesitated, the weight of the truth sitting heavily on her chest. "Mom, Tommy got locked in the car," she finally admitted, her voice quivering. "I had to break the window to get him out." Shock flickered across their mother's face, quickly followed by a wave of relief. "Oh my goodness, are you both okay?" she asked, rushing to embrace them tightly. "Yeah, we're okay," Tommy chimed in, though he still looked a bit shaken. "Imai saved me." Emily felt a swell of pride mixed with guilt as her mother held them close. "I was so scared, Mom," she whispered, her voice muffled in her mother's embrace. "I know, sweetheart, but you did an incredible job. You were so brave," their mother said, pulling back to look at Emily. "We need to talk about what happened, though. It's important to understand how to stay safe." Nodding slowly, Emily felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Pride in her bravery, but also fear about the near disaster they had faced. They settled at the kitchen table, the warmth of the house wrapping around them like a cozy blanket. As their mother poured glasses of cool water, she began to explain the dangers of leaving children unattended in cars, especially in the heat. Cars can become really hot, really fast, even when it doesn't feel that hot outside, she explained, her tone serious but gentle. "It's so important to make sure that you never leave Tommy, or anyone, locked inside a vehicle." Emily listened intently, absorbing every word. She couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that washed over her as her mother spoke, recalling how she had let her little brother wander too far, even if just for a moment. "But I was right there," she said softly, almost to herself. Their mother placed a reassuring hand on Emily's. "You can't predict everything, honey. What matters is that you acted quickly and saved him. That took a lot of courage." "Yeah, and Imai broke the window," Tommy added, his eyes sparkling with admiration for his sister. "That's true," their mother said, smiling gently at Emily. "But let's also think about how we can avoid situations like this in the future. Emily, I want you to promise me that you'll always keep an eye on Tommy, especially when you're playing outside." "I promise, Mom," Emily said, her heart swelling with the knowledge that she could be trusted to keep her brother safe. The lesson was clear. Protection was not just about heroic acts in a moment of crisis, but also about everyday vigilance. As the evening wore on, the family sat together, talking and laughing over cookies and milk. The earlier tension began to fade, but Emily felt a lingering heaviness in her heart. It was a reminder of the responsibility she carried as a big sister and the importance of keeping her loved ones safe. "Can we play outside again tomorrow?" Tommy asked, his usual excitement returning as he munched on a cookie. "Of course, but let's make sure we set some rules first, okay?" Emily suggested, feeling a newfound sense of maturity. "Like what?" Tommy asked, tilting his head in curiosity. "Well, we can play in the backyard, but we have to stay close to the house. And we should never play without telling Mom or Dad where we are," she replied, her mind racing with ideas. "That sounds good." Tommy beamed, his cheeks stuffed with cookie. "Good, and maybe we can even come up with a signal if we ever need help," Emily added, the thought making her feel empowered. Like a secret code. Their mother chuckled, a warm smile on her face. "I think that's a great idea. You two can be a team, always looking out for each other." As they finished their treats, Emily felt a sense of peace settling over her. Despite the day's earlier chaos, they had emerged stronger and more united. She realized that being a big sister wasn't just about protecting Tommy from harm. It was also about teaching him, guiding him, and creating a bond that would last a lifetime. After their cookies, Emily helped Tommy clean up their mess in the kitchen, a task that felt more like a partnership than a chore. They worked together, laughing and joking, enjoying each other's company. Emily cherished these moments, the laughter echoing off the walls, a soothing reminder of their love. Later that night, as Emily lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in her mind. She clutched her teddy bear tightly, a sense of safety wrapping around her like a cocoon. But as she drifted off to sleep, a new sense of purpose filled her heart. She wanted to be the best big sister she could be, always vigilant and prepared to protect Tommy. The next morning, the sun rose brighter than ever, casting golden rays across the neighborhood. Emily awoke with a renewed sense of determination. After breakfast, she found Tommy outside, playing in the backyard, his laughter ringing through the air. "Hey, Tommy, want to practice our secret code?" she called out, her heart racing with excitement. "Yeah," he shouted back, his eyes sparkling with joy. With a smile on her face, Emily explained her idea for the code, a simple whistle that would alert one another if they ever found themselves in trouble or needed help. As they practiced their secret signal, Emily felt a deep sense of satisfaction. It was more than just a game. It was a commitment to always look out for each other. The day unfolded with endless possibilities as they played games, ran around, and explored the backyard together. They created new adventures, pretending to be explorers searching for hidden treasures and brave knights defending their castle. With every laugh and every whispered secret, their bond grew stronger, fortified by the knowledge that they would always have each other's backs. As they wrapped up their day, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The near disaster from the previous day had transformed into a powerful lesson about responsibility, love, and the unbreakable bond of siblings. She knew that while the world might throw challenges their way, together they could face anything. "Let's promise to always look out for each other, no matter what," Emily said, looking into Tommy's eyes, her heart full of sincerity. "Promise," Tommy replied, his small hand reaching out to seal the pact. With their hands clasped together, they solidified a bond that would transcend time. A promise of unwavering loyalty and love, a testament to their courage and resilience. Stay tuned for Part 3, where Emily and Tommy face unexpected challenges that test their bond and their commitment to each other, leading them to discover the true meaning of courage and responsibility. The unexpected challenge. The sun began to set on the third day since the incident, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. Emily and Tommy had found their rhythm, their laughter filling the backyard as they dove into a new game of imagination. They had established a sense of normalcy after the scare that had almost torn them apart, but deep inside, Emily felt a tug of unease, a reminder that life was unpredictable. "Let's play pirate," Tommy shouted, brandishing a toy sword as he raced across the yard, his energy seemingly limitless. "We'll search for treasure." Matey," Emily responded, channeling her inner pirate. "But beware the treacherous waters." She pointed dramatically to the small inflatable kiddie pool they had set up earlier that week, its bright blue surface sparkling in the sunlight. They spent the next hour transforming their backyard into a vast ocean. Emily, the brave captain of their pirate ship, steered them toward treasure buried deep within the islands of their imaginations. Tommy, her loyal first mate, valiantly defended their ship against imaginary sea monsters that lurked in the depths. The pair navigated the treacherous waters of their yard, giggling and squealing with delight, free from the weight of their recent past. But as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across their territory, the mood shifted. They had been playing near the driveway, a place they had made an agreement to stay away from after the incident with the car. Emily, ever vigilant, felt a shiver of anxiety as she noticed a shadow moving behind the fence that bordered their property. "Tommy, stay close," she called out, her tone shifting from playful to serious. She moved cautiously towards the fence, curiosity mingling with apprehension. "What's over there?" "I don't know," Tommy whispered, his eyes wide. "Do you think it's a pirate?" Emily bit her lip, uncertain. She had promised their parents that they would stay safe, and now she felt the weight of that promise resting on her shoulders again. "Let's just check it out together, but we need to be careful." Together, they crept closer to the fence, their imaginations running wild. Peeking through the gaps in the wooden slats, Emily caught a glimpse of movement, a large dog bounding through the neighbor's yard, its shaggy fur dancing in the wind. "It's just a dog," she exclaimed, relief flooding her. The dog was wagging its tail furiously, barking playfully as it chased after a squirrel. Emily's heart settled, and she turned to Tommy, who was already bouncing on his toes. "Can we play with it?" he asked, his eyes bright with excitement. Emily hesitated. "I'm not sure, Tommy. We don't know if it's friendly." She remembered her parents' warnings about strange dogs and the need to respect animals that weren't familiar. But Tommy was already climbing up on the fence, eager to get a better look. "Come on, Emai. It looks so happy." "Tommy, wait," Emily shouted, panic gripping her as she rushed to pull him back. But it was too late. The dog, sensing their presence, bounded over to them, tail wagging furiously, and jumped up, barking joyfully. "See," Tommy laughed, delighted. "He's nice." The dog's excitement was infectious, and Emily found herself laughing despite her initial apprehension. "Okay, maybe just for a moment," she relented, her heart warming at the sight of Tommy giggling as the dog licked his face. "But we have to be careful." As they played with the dog, Emily felt the joy return to their backyard. They threw sticks, and the dog sprinted after them, bounding through the grass with an unrestrained energy that mirrored Tommy's own. Emily watched the two of them, her heart swelling with happiness. For a brief moment, it felt as though the shadows of the past had lifted, and they were just two kids enjoying a carefree day. However, the joyous moment was short-lived. As they played, the dog suddenly stopped, ears perked, and let out a low growl. Emily's heart raced as she glanced around, her instincts kicking in. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Before she could process the situation, a figure appeared from behind the fence, a teenage boy, tall and muscular, wearing a cap pulled low over his eyes. He called out to the dog, "Max, come here." The dog, obedient to its owner, trotted back toward him, tail wagging. Emily instinctively stepped closer to Tommy, her protective instincts flaring again. The boy approached, a cocky grin on his face as he eyed the two siblings. "Hey, you're playing with my dog," he said nonchalantly, his tone dripping with entitlement. We were just..." Emily started, but the boy cut her off. "Yeah, I can see that. You shouldn't be over here without permission. My dog can be a little wild," he said, flashing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. The playful energy that had filled their yard moments ago began to shift into an uncomfortable tension. "We didn't mean any harm. He came over to us," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The last thing she wanted was to escalate the situation, but something about the boy's demeanor set her on edge. Tommy clutched Emily's hand tightly, his earlier joy replaced with uncertainty. "Can we play with Max again?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The boy chuckled, but there was an edge to it that made Emily's stomach churn. "Sure, but only if you do what I say." "Like what?" Emily asked, her heart racing. "Like you can't play in the driveway anymore. It's my territory." "Got it." He leaned closer, a challenging look in his eyes. Emily felt a surge of anger and protectiveness for her brother. "That's not fair. We're just playing in our yard," she said firmly, her voice rising slightly. "Fair? Life's not fair, little girl. Just remember who has the dog," he sneered, motioning for Max to follow him as he turned to walk away. "Wait," Emily shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "What if we just play a little longer? We promised to stay in our yard." But the boy just laughed, waving his hand dismissively. "Yeah, whatever. Just don't let me catch you over here again." With that, he disappeared behind the fence, leaving Emily and Tommy standing in the yard, the air thick with tension. "What was that all about?" Tommy asked, his small voice trembling slightly. "I don't know, buddy," Emily replied, feeling the weight of the situation settle heavily on her shoulders again. "But I don't like it. He was really mean." "Can we still play pirate?" Tommy asked, looking up at her with hopeful eyes. "Let's go inside for a bit," Emily suggested, feeling an urge to protect him from the lingering negativity. "We can play something inside." As they entered the house, Emily's mind raced with thoughts. She felt frustrated by the boy's arrogance and the way he had exerted control over their joyful afternoon. "It's not fair," she muttered under her breath. "We should be able to play in our own yard without worrying about someone else." Once inside, she turned to Tommy. "I'm sorry that happened. I want you to know it's okay to feel upset," she said, kneeling down to his level. "But he was just being mean," Tommy said, his brows furrowing. "Why do people have to be mean?" Emily felt a pang in her heart. "I don't know, Tommy. Some people just don't understand how to be kind. But we can't let them take away our joy, okay?" "Okay," he replied, though his small face still wore a frown. They settled into the living room, playing board games and doing their best to shake off the earlier encounter. Emily was determined not to let the boys' attitude ruin their day. She led them in a game of pretend, where they were explorers finding hidden treasures in uncharted lands, turning the living room into a world of adventure. But the shadow of the encounter lingered in the back of her mind, reminding her of the unpredictability of life. The truth was that their backyard was no longer a safe haven. It had transformed into a place where they had to be cautious, aware of the unexpected challenges that lurked just beyond their gate. As the days passed, Emily remained vigilant, often glancing toward the fence to ensure that the boy wasn't watching them. She felt a growing responsibility to protect Tommy, not just from the dangers that could happen inside their home, but from the outside world, which seemed to be filled with unknowns. One afternoon, while they were playing outside again, Emily noticed Tommy heading toward the driveway. "Tommy, come back. Remember what we talked about," she called out, her heart racing as she rushed to intercept him. "But I want to see Max," Tommy protested, his face filled with determination. "Tommy, please, I don't want to take any chances. Let's just stay safe," she pleaded, taking his hand in hers. "I don't care about that mean boy," he insisted, pulling away slightly. Emily felt her heart break a little. "I know it's hard, but we have to be smart. I'll always be here to protect you, but you have to help me too," she urged, trying to convey the importance of their promise. After a moment of hesitation, Tommy nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Okay, but I miss playing with Max," he said softly. "I know, buddy. Maybe we can figure something out," Emily said, brainstorming ways they could interact with the dog without crossing paths with the boy. "What if we made a sign for Max? Something to let the boy know we want to play nicely without causing trouble." "Like a treasure map," Tommy exclaimed, his eyes lighting up at the idea. "Exactly. Let's make a treasure map for Max. If we show the boy we're friendly and just want to play, maybe he'll let us, Emily suggested, feeling hopeful. They got to work immediately, creating a colorful treasure map that led to their backyard, with drawings of buried treasure and fun activities. They placed it against the fence, hoping the boy would see it and understand their intentions. Days turned into a week, and though they had not seen the boy since that day, the tension hung like a cloud over their heads. Emily felt as if they were teetering on the edge of something, waiting for a spark to ignite. Then, one sunny afternoon, while Emily and Tommy were playing in their backyard, the boy reappeared, a cocky smirk on his face as he approached the fence. "What's this?" he asked, gesturing toward the treasure map. Emily's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "That's our map for Max. We want to play with him." The boy looked at them, seemingly amused. "You think just because you made a map, I'm going to let you play with my dog?" Emily took a deep breath, reminding herself of the promise she had made to protect Tommy. "We just want to be friends," she said firmly. The boy's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "Friends? You think I want to be friends with a couple of kids who can't even play in their own yard?" "Please," Tommy piped up, his small voice filled with earnestness. "We just want to play. Max is so nice, and will stay in our yard. We promise." The boy crossed his arms, considering them for a moment. Emily could feel Tommy's grip on her hand tighten, his little body filled with nervous energy. "Fine," he finally said, a grudging tone in his voice. "But if you want to play with him, you have to come to my yard. I won't let you over here anymore." Emily's heart sank at the prospect of leaving the safety of their own space, but she could see Tommy's excitement bubbling up. "We can do that," she replied, her voice steady despite the unease in her stomach. The boy motioned for Max, who bounded over with a bark, tail wagging. "All right, let's see if you can keep up," he said, turning back toward his yard. With a deep breath, Emily looked at Tommy, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "Are you ready, Tommy?" "Yeah. Let's go," he shouted, his voice filled with eagerness. As they crossed the threshold into the boy's yard, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline and fear. They were stepping into unknown territory, a world where she had to be vigilant and protect her brother while also allowing him to experience joy. But as they began to play, throwing sticks for Max and running around the yard, Emily couldn't help but feel a small sense of triumph. They were breaking down barriers, forging a new friendship with the boy and his dog, while proving to themselves that they could still enjoy the freedom of childhood despite the challenges they faced. As the afternoon faded into evening, the boys' earlier bravado began to fade. They laughed together, and Max's joyful barks filled the air, echoing the sounds of childhood laughter and camaraderie. In that moment, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could create a new world, one where they didn't have to be afraid of the challenges that lay ahead. Stay tuned for Part 4, where Emily and Tommy navigate the complexities of their newfound friendship, discovering that courage sometimes comes from unexpected places and learning valuable lessons about trust, teamwork, and standing up for what's right. Building bridges. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted in twilight hues as Emily, Tommy, and the boy, who introduced himself as Jake, continued their impromptu game in the yard. The earlier tension from their first encounter had dissipated, replaced by a sense of camaraderie, as Max bounded joyfully between them, his tail wagging furiously. "Okay, let's make this interesting," Jake exclaimed, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "How about a race? Max against you two." He crouched low, ready to take off. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. With that, he bolted across the yard, and Emily instinctively grabbed Tommy's hand, pulling him along with her. Laughter erupted as they raced against the dog, the thrill of the competition invigorating them. Emily felt a rush of adrenaline as she and Tommy matched Jake's pace, all of them sprinting toward the fence at the far end of the yard. "Come on, Tommy, we can beat him," she called out, her voice a blend of encouragement and playful determination. Tommy's laughter rang out as he pushed himself to run faster. "We're gonna win," he shouted, his small legs pumping furiously as he kept stride with Emily. The finish line was just ahead, and for a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect. They were laughing, running, and enjoying the freedom of childhood together, a stark contrast to the tension that had overshadowed their earlier days. As they reached the fence, Jake slowed down, panting but grinning. Okay, you guys are pretty fast. But I still won," he boasted, although Emily noticed the admiration in his eyes as he looked at them. "Just barely." Emily shot back, her heart racing not just from the run, but from the joy of competition. "We'll get you next time." Tommy beamed up at her, excitement shining in his eyes. "Yeah, next time. We'll beat you for sure. Bring it on, little man." Jake laughed, ruffling Tommy's hair playfully. The three of them took a moment to catch their breath, sitting on the grass as Max lay down beside them, panting happily. The evening air was filled with the sounds of crickets chirping and the distant laughter of other kids playing in their yards. Emily felt a sense of normalcy return, as if they were just three kids enjoying a warm summer night. As the playful banter continued, Emily realized how quickly the walls she had built around herself and Tommy were crumbling. She was no longer just a big sister trying to shield her younger brother from the world. She was part of something bigger, a community of kids who could share adventures and laughter. "Hey, do you guys want to do something else?" Jake asked, his eyes glinting with mischief. "I have some cool superhero comics at my place. We could read them and make up our own stories." "Superheroes," Tommy squealed, his enthusiasm bubbling over. "Yes, please." Emily's heart raced. She felt a pang of hesitation. While she was eager to embrace the friendship blossoming between them, the thought of entering Jake's house filled her with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She glanced at Tommy, who was practically bouncing on the spot. "What do you think, Tommy? Should we check it out?" Yes, I want to see the comics," he insisted, his eyes wide with anticipation. "Okay," Emily replied, mustering her courage. "But we stick together, right? No wandering off." "Of course, I'll keep an eye on him," Jake assured, though there was a hint of teasing in his tone. They made their way to Jake's house, which was just a few steps across the yard, but to Emily, it felt like entering a whole new world. The space was filled with the scent of something baking in the oven, mixing with the fresh smell of grass from outside. The porch was adorned with flower pots bursting with colorful blooms, and the windows glowed warmly, casting a soft light across the yard. Jake opened the door, and they stepped inside. The living room was a cozy haven, decorated with posters of superheroes and shelves, lined with books and comics. Emily's heart swelled with warmth as she surveyed the space, recognizing it as a home filled with life and imagination. "Welcome to my lair," Jake declared dramatically, striking the superhero pose. "This is where all the magic happens." Emily chuckled, feeling her initial apprehension start to fade. "Nice place you've got here, Jake." "Thanks. My dad's a comic book artist," Jake explained, leading them to a large coffee table in the center of the room, which was covered in comics, action figures, and various art supplies. "He lets me help him sometimes." "Do you guys draw?" "I like to," Tommy said excitedly, "but I'm not that good yet." "Don't worry. We can all practice together," Jake said, his enthusiasm infectious. "Here, check this out." He grabbed a comic from the pile and opened it up, showing them vivid illustrations and dynamic characters. Emily watched as Tommy's eyes lit up, absorbed in the colorful pages. "This is so cool," he exclaimed, leaning closer to get a better look. "Do you want to create our own superhero?" Jake asked, grinning. "We can come up with powers and a backstory. I'll be the artist, and you guys can tell me what to draw." "Yeah," Tommy shouted, jumping up from his seat. "I want our superhero to fly. I want them to be super strong. Emily added, feeling the creative energy spark between them. "All right, let's get to work," Jake declared, grabbing a sketch pad and pencils from the table. As they brainstormed, the three of them fell into a rhythm, each contributing ideas that flowed seamlessly. They created a character named Sky Force, a superhero with the power to control the winds and fly through the clouds. Tommy excitedly suggested the ability to create tornadoes, while Emily added that Skyforce could talk to animals and help them in need. "Skyforce is going to save the world," Tommy exclaimed, his imagination running wild. "Yeah, and they'll have a secret lair in the clouds," Jake added, drawing furiously, capturing their ideas with each stroke of his pencil. Emily felt the warm glow of creativity surrounding them, a palpable energy that made her heart soar. In that moment, all of her worries about the previous encounters faded away. They were just kids, united by imagination, creating a world of heroes together. Time flew by as they sketched and laughed, the initial unease completely forgotten. The sun began to set outside, casting a golden hue across the room, and Emily couldn't remember the last time she had felt this free. After a while, they paused to catch their breath, their hands covered in pencil smudges and their faces flushed with excitement. "This is so much fun," Emily said, looking at her brother, who was grinning ear to ear. "I love it," Tommy chimed in, leaning over to inspect Jake's drawings. "You're really good at this." "Thanks. I love drawing superheroes," Jake replied, his eyes sparkling with passion. "Maybe one day I can be a comic book artist like my dad. What do you guys want to be when you grow up?" Emily thought for a moment. "I want to be a vet. I love animals, and I want to help them." Tommy chimed in. "I want to be a superhero." His enthusiasm was contagious, making all three of them burst into laughter. "Great choice. I'll help you design your costume," Jake promised, already jotting down notes for their next superhero adventure. Just as they were lost in their creativity, the door swung open, and Jake's mom stepped in, her arms filled with fresh cookies. "Hey, kids, I baked some chocolate chip cookies. Who wants one?" "Me. Me," Tommy shouted, jumping up excitedly. Emily's stomach growled at the enticing smell wafting through the air. "Yes, please," she said, her mouth watering. Jake's mom set the plate down on the table, and the kids dove in, savoring the warm, gooey cookies as they chatted about their superhero adventures. Emily felt a sense of belonging envelop her, as if they had forged a new bond through their shared dreams and creativity. After indulging in a few cookies, Jake's mom joined them, asking about their superhero creation. Emily found herself explaining their character with enthusiasm, her heart swelling with pride as Tommy chimed in, sharing his ideas. "That sounds amazing. You all have such vivid imaginations," Jake's mom praised, her eyes sparkling. "It's so important to nurture creativity at your age. Who knows? You might be the next big comic book team." The kids exchanged excited glances, the thought of their superhero adventures becoming a reality, igniting their imaginations even further. As the evening wore on, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. The challenges they had faced, the meme boy, the locked car incident, the uncertainty of new friendships, seemed distant, overshadowed by the joy they were creating together. But just as they were fully absorbed in their storytelling, Emily's phone buzzed from her pocket. Pulling it out, she saw a message from her mom, reminding her to be home before dark. A wave of disappointment washed over her. She didn't want this magical day to end. "Hey guys, I think we need to wrap it up soon. My mom wants me home before dark," Emily said reluctantly. "Aw, can't you stay just a little longer?" Tommy pleaded, looking up at her with big, hopeful eyes. "Yeah, we can continue our superhero story another day," Jake added, trying to convince her. Emily's heart tugged at the thought of leaving. "I promise we will. I had so much fun today. Maybe we can do this again tomorrow." "Definitely. I'll bring even more comics," Jake promised, his excitement palpable. As they made their way back across the yard, Emily reflected on how quickly things had changed. Just a few weeks ago, she and Tommy had been trapped in their own fears, isolated by the challenges they faced. But now they were forming bonds that would help them navigate through whatever came next. Underneath the stars that began to twinkle above them, Emily turned to Jake and Tommy. "Thanks for today, you guys. I really needed this." "Me too," Tommy chimed in, his voice filled with sincerity. Jake grinned, a look of understanding crossing his face. "Anytime. We're friends now, right? Friends look out for each other." As Emily reached for Tommy's hand, she felt a warmth spreading through her heart. "Absolutely," she replied, a smile breaking across her face. And as they walked home, Emily knew that together they could face anything that life threw their way. Stay tuned for Part 5, where they will encounter new challenges, test the strength of their friendship, and discover that true bravery lies in standing up for each other when it matters most. Shadows of Doubt. The next morning dawned bright and cheerful, the sun casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. Emily awoke with a sense of anticipation fluttering in her stomach. Today, she and Tommy were going back to Jake's house, and the thought of another adventure filled her with excitement. After breakfast, Emily helped Tommy get ready, brushing his hair and making sure he wore his favorite superhero t-shirt, the one with a lightning bolt emblazoned across the chest. "You look like a real hero," Emily exclaimed, giving him an encouraging smile. "Thanks, Emai. I'm ready to save the world," Tommy declared, puffing out his chest with pride. With their bags packed full of drawing supplies, they set off for Jake's house. As they walked through the familiar path, the air was alive with the sounds of nature. Birds chirping, leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, and the distant laughter of other kids. Emily felt a lightness in her heart. This was how childhood should feel. When they arrived at Jake's house, he was already waiting for them at the gate, a huge grin on his face. "You guys made it. I was worried you might sleep in." "Not a chance," Emily laughed, ruffling Tommy's hair as they joined Jake at the gate. The trio quickly settled back into their creative groove, spending the morning sketching new superheroes and exploring ideas for their comic. Tommy had the most imaginative ideas, often leading them on wild tangents about saving kittens from trees and battling villains with goofy powers. Jake took great delight in bringing Tommy's whimsical ideas to life, and Emily found herself swept up in their excitement, her fears from the past few weeks fading with each burst of laughter. As lunchtime approached, Jake's mom called them in for sandwiches. Sitting at the kitchen table, they enjoyed a spread of fresh veggies, cold cuts, and cookies that Jake's mom had baked that morning. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming, a far cry from the tension that had clouded their initial encounters. "So, what are you all working on?" Jake's mom asked, noticing the doodles scattered across the table. "We're creating our own superhero comic," Tawny exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Her name is Skyforce, and she can fly and talk to animals." "That sounds amazing," Jake's mom said, genuinely impressed. "You kids have such vivid imaginations. Just remember, creativity comes from sharing ideas and supporting each other. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't create." Her words resonated with Emily, and she felt a renewed sense of determination. They could be whatever they wanted. Nothing could hold them back. After lunch, they returned to Jake's room, bursting with energy and new ideas. But as they began to sketch, Emily noticed a change in the atmosphere. Jake seemed distracted, glancing out the window as if waiting for something. Emily decided to address it. "Hey Jake, everything okay?" "Huh? Oh yeah, just. My dad said he'd be back from work early today, but I thought I saw him drive by." Jake waved it off, but Emily could see the worry in his eyes. "Is everything all right at home?" Emily pressed gently, sensing that something was off. Jake hesitated, biting his lip before answering. "It's just that sometimes my dad gets really stressed about work. He's been in a bad mood lately, And I hope he's okay. Is there anything we can do to help? Tommy asked innocently, his concern evident. Not really, Jake replied, shrugging. But thanks for asking. It just makes me a bit nervous, that's all. Emily felt a pang of empathy. She could relate to that sense of uncertainty. They had faced their own fears, and she admired Jake's bravery in opening up. You know, if you ever need to talk, we're here for you, she said, her voice sincere. Yeah, we're friends, right? Tommy chimed in, bouncing on his toes. Yeah, friends, Jake echoed, a small smile breaking through the worry. I appreciate it, guys. With the mood slightly lifted, they dove back into their comic, brainstorming how Skyforce would face her first villain, a mischievous character named the Shadow, who threatened to steal all the joy from the city. The idea of battling darkness resonated with Emily, who felt a deeper connection to their story with every twist and turn. But as the afternoon wore on, the tension returned when Jake's dad arrived home. The moment the front door swung open, a palpable shift filled the air. Emily watched as Jake's expression changed, anxiety creeping back onto his face. "Hey, champ," Jake's dad called out, but there was an edge to his voice. He stepped into the kitchen, and Emily could sense that something was off. Jake's dad was tall and muscular, with a kind smile that usually lit up the room. But today, his eyes looked tired, shadows darkening his features. "Hey, Dad," Jake replied, trying to muster a smile but failing to hide his unease. Emily felt her heart race as the atmosphere thickened with tension. They could hear the distant sound of the TV blaring in the background, but it was drowned out by an awkward silence. "Did you finish your homework?" Jake's dad asked sharply, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone stiffen. Yeah, I did it at school," Jake said, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "Good," his dad replied, but there was no warmth in his words. He turned and walked toward the living room, leaving a lingering sense of unease in the air. Jake let out a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Sorry about that," he muttered, his eyes downcast. Emily reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. "It's okay. We're still here for you." "Yeah, don't worry. You can talk about it if you want," Tommy added, his voice soft yet earnest. "I appreciate it, but it's just, sometimes he doesn't realize how hard he is on me," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It makes me feel like I can't do anything right." Emily felt a wave of compassion wash over her. She understood the pressure that came with expectations. "You're doing great, Jake. It's not easy dealing with stuff like that," she reassured him. "Just remember that we're your friends, and we believe in you." "Thanks, Emily," Jake said, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "It means a lot." The three of them gathered around the table again, trying to immerse themselves in their comic, but Emily could sense the shadows looming. They worked together, sketching and writing, but every now and then, Jake would glance toward the living room, his expression clouded with worry. The afternoon stretched on, the laughter less frequent as they tried to keep their spirits high. They continued to develop Skyforce's journey, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that Jake was carrying a burden that weighed heavily on him. Finally, they decided to take a break and go outside. "Let's play with Max," Tommy suggested, bouncing with energy. "Great idea," Jake replied, his face brightening momentarily. They raced outside, and for a while, the joy of playing with Max helped ease the tension. They threw sticks and ran around, the sun shining brightly above them. But as the shadows grew longer, Emily couldn't help but notice Jake's distracted gaze, always drifting back toward the house. As they sat in the grass, catching their breath, Emily turned to Jake. "Hey, do you want to talk about what's going on with your dad? You can share if you feel comfortable." Jake hesitated, then sighed deeply. "I don't know. It just feels like he expects me to be perfect. And when I'm not, well, it's hard." He looked at the ground, his expression a mixture of frustration and sadness. "None of us are perfect," Emily said softly. "It's okay to make mistakes. That doesn't mean you're not trying your best. Tommy nodded vigorously. Yeah, you're our superhero, Jake. You don't have to save the day all the time. A small smile flickered on Jake's face, but it quickly faded. I know, but it's just hard when I feel like I'm letting him down. Maybe it would help to talk to him about how you feel, Emily suggested gently. Sometimes, adults don't realize how their words affect us. They're just trying to help but might not know how. Jake contemplated this, his brow furrowing. Yeah, maybe. I just don't want to upset him more. Emily placed a comforting hand on his back. It's brave to speak up, even if it's scary. It shows strength, and it's okay to let him know how you feel. As they continued their conversation, a newfound sense of determination filled the air. The bond they were building transcended just play. It was about supporting each other through challenges, no matter how daunting they felt. Eventually, the sun began to set, painting the sky with brilliant shades of orange and pink. Emily could sense it was time to go home, but she didn't want their day to end on a note of worry. Let's promise to meet again soon, she suggested, her voice steady. We can keep working on our superhero comic and check in on each other. Definitely. Tommy cheered, his excitement palpable. I'd like that, Jake replied, a small spark of hope igniting in his eyes. With their spirits lifted, they headed back toward home. As they walked together, the warmth of friendship wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, shielding them from the shadows that threatened to creep back in. Remember, we're always here for each other, Emily said, feeling a sense of purpose growing inside her. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Together, Tommy echoed, throwing his arms around both of them in a spontaneous hug. And with that simple gesture, the darkness felt a little less overwhelming, and Emily knew that their journey was far from over. In the next part, they will face a new challenge that tests their friendship and the courage they found in each other. Stay tuned for part 6, where they learn that true strength lies in unity, and that facing fears together can conquer even the darkest of days. Rising above. The following week was filled with a flurry of activity, as Emily, Tommy, and Jake dove headfirst into their superhero comic project. They gathered every day after school, transforming Jake's room into a creative hub adorned with colorful sketches, half-finished scripts, and an array of snacks that fueled their imaginations. As they delved deeper into their project, the shadows of doubt and fear that had clouded Jake's spirit began to fade. They forged ahead with newfound energy, brainstorming how Skyforce would confront the villain, the Shadow, who threatened to envelop the city in darkness. Each character they created seemed to echo their own struggles, yet also their resilience and strength. One sunny afternoon, while working on their comic, Emily glanced out the window. The sky was a brilliant blue, dotted with fluffy white clouds, and she could hear the distant sounds of laughter from other kids playing outside. Hey guys, how about we take a break and get some fresh air? She suggested, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. Great idea, Tommy exclaimed, hopping up from the floor. Jake hesitated for a moment, glancing at his unfinished drawing. Are you sure? We have so much left to do. Exactly. A break will help clear our minds. We'll come back with fresh ideas. Emily reassured him. Plus, we can take Max for a walk. Jake finally relented, the corners of his mouth lifting into a reluctant smile. Okay. Let's go. They dashed outside, their laughter mingling with the rustling leaves as they grabbed Max's leash. The energetic dog bounded around them, barking in excitement, as if he understood that a new adventure was about to unfold. The trio set off, exploring the neighborhood while allowing their imaginations to roam free. They played games, pretending to be Skyforce and her sidekicks, battling imaginary villains hiding behind trees and bushes. Emily felt lighter, the burdens of life slipping away as they ran together, their worries temporarily forgotten in the warmth of friendship. But as they strolled further into their neighborhood, they stumbled upon something unexpected. A small crowd had gathered around a house, murmurs of concern rippling through the air. Emily's heart sank as she caught sight of a woman standing on the porch, tears streaming down her face. "What's happening?" Tommy asked, his brow furrowed with confusion. "I don't know," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's go see." As they approached, they realized that the woman's young daughter, no older than Tommy, was missing. Emily's heart ached for her. The little girl had wandered off to play, and no one had seen where she had gone. The sense of urgency hung thick in the air, and Emily felt a wave of fear wash over her. "Should we help?" Tommy whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Jake looked uncertain, but then he nodded resolutely. "We can't just stand here. We should help look for her." "Let's split up," Emily suggested, her heart racing. "Tommy, you stay with me. Jake, you go that way and check the park." "Got it," Jake replied, and without hesitation, he took off toward the nearby park. "Emily, what if we can't find her?" Tommy asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. "We have to try, Tommy. We can't leave her alone," Emily replied, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "Let's start by checking the nearby yards, and then head to the park." As they moved through the neighborhood, Emily felt a mixture of fear and determination. Each house they approached filled her with dread, but she pushed it aside. They called out the little girl's name, hoping that she would respond. "Lily, are you here?" Emily shouted, her voice echoing through the quiet street. They made their way down a narrow alley, where the tall fences on either side loomed like barriers. Emily's heart raced as she knocked on doors, explaining to each homeowner what had happened, asking if they had seen the little girl. Each time the answer was no, but with each no, she felt a growing urgency inside her. "Amy, what if she's really lost?" Tommy's voice trembled. "She's out there, Tommy. We just have to keep looking," Emily replied, her determination fueling her resolve. After what felt like hours, they reached the park, where children were playing blissfully unaware of the situation unfolding just moments away. Emily spotted Jake standing by the swings, his eyes scanning the area. She ran over, pulling Tommy along with her. "Did you find anything?" Emily asked, breathless. "No," Jake replied, his expression grave. "I've been calling her name, but there's no sign of her." Panic bubbled inside Emily, but she fought it down. "We can't give up. Let's split up again. We'll cover more ground that way." Reluctantly, they agreed, and each of them took a different direction, spreading out in hopes of finding Lily. Emily led Tommy toward the climbing structure, her heart pounding with fear. "We can do this, Tommy. We just have to keep our eyes open." As they reached the jungle gym, Emily's gaze swept across the area, searching for any sign of the little girl. Her thoughts raced. What if something had happened to her? What if they couldn't find her? But Emily reminded herself that panicking wouldn't help. They had to stay focused. "Hey, have you seen Lily?" Emily called to a group of kids nearby. They shook their heads, their faces painted with concern. "Lily? No, but we can help you look," one of the girls replied, determination shining in her eyes. "Thank you," Emily said, feeling a flicker of hope. They formed a small search party, calling Lily's name as they combed through the playground and the surrounding area. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. The sun began to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch on forever. Emily's heart sank as dread filled her thoughts. How could they not find her? "Amy, I'm scared," Tommy admitted, his voice small. "I know, Tommy, but we can't stop looking," Emily reassured him, squeezing his hand tightly. "We have to keep believing she's out there." Just then, they spotted a small figure in the distance, standing by the edge of the park. Emily's heart leaped as she ran toward it, her pulse racing with adrenaline. "Lily," she called out, her voice echoing in the growing twilight. As they approached, relief washed over her when she realized it was indeed Lily. The little girl stood there, her big brown eyes wide with fear, clutching the small stuffed bunny. "Lily," Emily exclaimed, rushing toward her. Where have you been? We were so worried. I just wanted to go on the slide. Lily sniffled, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to get lost. Emily crouched down to Lily's level, gently cupping her face in her hands. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Let's get you back to your mom. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't know how to get back. Emily turned to Tommy and Jake, who had caught up behind her, relief evident on their faces. We found her, she shouted, the weight of worry lifting from her chest. Thank goodness, Jake said, a smile breaking through his earlier concern. Together, they led Lily back toward her house. As they approached, they could see her mother still standing on the porch, her face a mixture of anxiety and relief. Lily, she cried, rushing down the steps to scoop her daughter into her arms. I was so scared. Don't you ever run off like that again. Emily watched as Lily's mother hugged her tightly, her heart swelling with a mix of happiness and relief. I'm sorry, Mommy, Lily sniffed, her little arms wrapping around her mother's neck. As they stood on the porch, the mother turned to Emily and her friends, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you so much for finding her. I can't express how relieved I am. It was a team effort, Emily said, feeling the warmth of camaraderie envelop them. We just wanted to help. Once Lily was safely in her mother's arms, Emily felt a wave of satisfaction wash over her. They had faced fear head-on, and together they had triumphed. As they walked away from the house, the sun began to set, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples. Emily felt an overwhelming sense of pride swell in her chest. They had not only saved Lily, but had also learned the power of teamwork and friendship. We did it, Tommy exclaimed, beaming with joy. We really did it. Yeah, we did, Jake said, a newfound spark igniting in his eyes. I can't believe we found her. Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. And it showed us that we can do anything when we work together. That night, as they gathered in Jake's room once more, they settled down to finish their comic. The events of the day had inspired them. Skyforce would face her greatest challenge yet, but she would do so with her friends by her side. As they sketched out the final scenes, Emily realized that true bravery wasn't just about facing fears. It was about lifting each other up and standing together, no matter how dark the world seemed. They had fought through uncertainty and emerged stronger, proving that courage and love could conquer all. And with that, they crafted a story filled with hope, adventure, and the undeniable bond of friendship, a story that would not only entertain but inspire those who read it. As they penned the final words, Emily felt a deep sense of accomplishment wash over her. Their journey had just begun, but she knew that together, they could face any challenge that life threw their way. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky full of stars, a symbol of the light that could always shine through the darkness when friends stood together, united in their courage. And so, Emily, Tommy, and Jake closed their sketchbooks, their hearts filled with dreams, knowing that tomorrow would bring new adventures and new challenges. But no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, as the best of friends, as heroes in their own right.